In 2009, a wildlife researcher in Amboseli, Kenya, watched a female elephant stand over a dead calf for 11 hours. The calf wasn't hers. She hadn't been there when it died. She arrived after, touched the body with her trunk, and stayed. Through the heat of the day. Through the night. Other elephants moved on. She didn't. What the researchers noticed on the footage was specific. The way she touched the body was different from how she touched living animals. Slower. More deliberate. She kept returning to the face. She wasn't confused. She wasn't waiting for it to wake up. Something about this particular stillness was registering as something distinct. So here's the question nobody has cleanly answered yet. Do animals actually know when something is dead? The answer is stranger than yes or no. The first thing researchers expected was simple. Death removes all the behavioral signals that trigger social responses: movement, sound, the smell of the living. No cues, no response. That's not what happens. In 2017, a study documented 17 separate cases of primate mothers carrying deceased infants: chimpanzees, macaques, geladas. Some carried the bodies for days. One Japanese macaque carried her infant's mummified remains for 17 days in sub-freezing temperatures, grooming it, cradling it during sleep, responding to its presence as though the relationship hadn't ended. Researchers assumed it was confusion. The mother couldn't process the death. Then they watched more carefully, and what they saw made the confusion explanation impossible.
The mothers knew exactly where the body was. They avoided obstacles at the infant's height. They adjusted their grip when moving through branches. They responded to the weight distribution shifting as decomposition progressed. This isn't a mother who doesn't know her infant is dead. This is a mother who knows and is choosing, at some level, to keep behaving as though it isn't. That distinction changes everything. But here's what nobody predicted next. In 2016, researchers at Georgia State University showed captive chimpanzees 2 videos side by side. In one, a familiar chimp slept. In the other, the same chimp lay dead. The chimpanzees didn't look away from the death video. They looked toward it. Their attention, measured by eye tracking, shifted significantly toward death, not away. They weren't disturbed into avoidance. They were drawn in. Then the researchers showed them an unfamiliar chimpanzee that had just died. The attention response was smaller, not absent, smaller. They responded more strongly to the death of someone they knew, which raises a question the researchers didn't go in expecting to ask. What does knowing someone mean to a chimpanzee watching them die? Now here's where it gets genuinely strange. Crows hold funerals. In 2015, researcher Kaylee Swift at the University of Washington placed dead crows in various locations and filmed what happened. Living crows that encountered the body mobbed it, the same aggressive response they use toward predators. Then they produced a vocalization that hadn't been cataloged in any other context. Lower, slower, surrounding crows gathered. They stayed near the body without touching it. Swift then placed a dead crow next to a hawk, the crow's primary predator. The crows responded to both, but with the dead crow, something additional happened. After the mobbing ended, they avoided that location for weeks. Not the hawk, the location where the crow had died. They were updating their mental map of the world based on where a member of their species had been found dead, even after the specific threat was gone. That isn't grief, that's something more disturbing, using the dead as data.
But nothing in the research prepared anyone for what happened in the Budongo forest in Uganda in 2013. A chimpanzee named Thomas died of a respiratory illness. His group found the body the following morning. Other chimpanzees groomed it, inspected it closely, sat beside it for hours. None of that was the surprising part. One female found a grass stem. She inserted it into Thomas's teeth and cleaned them. Methodically, completely, with the same motion, the same thoroughness she would use on a living member of the group. She groomed his teeth after he was dead, because that was what you did for someone in your group. The researchers watching didn't have a framework for it. They still don't. Around the same time, something was happening in the Pacific Northwest that would become one of the most watched animal behavior events ever documented. In 2018, a killer whale named Tahlequah gave birth. The calf died within 30 minutes. Tahlequah didn't let it sink. She carried it for 17 days, over 1,000 miles of open ocean, surfacing repeatedly to keep the body above water. When she tired, Other members of her pod took turns, supporting the calf so she could rest and eat. A group of animals with no cultural framework, no death rites, no concept of mourning, taking shifts carrying a dead calf through open ocean because one of them wasn't done yet. By every biological measure, this behavior is expensive. It slows movement, it impairs hunting, it costs calories. There is no evolutionary return on a dead calf. There is no clean explanation for what Tahlequah was doing. There is only what she did. So what is actually happening inside these animals? Here's the honest answer from the researchers who study this. They don't know.
What they can measure is behavior. What they cannot access is the interior, whether there is something it is like to be a crow standing over a dead member of its species, producing a vocalization that uses in no other context. But what the behavioral data shows consistently is this: animals with the cognitive architecture for complex social relationships, elephants, primates, corvids, cetaceans, don't simply stop responding when the behavioral cues of life disappear. They respond to the absence itself. And here's the pattern that keeps emerging and keeps resisting explanation. The animals that show the most sophisticated responses to death are the exact same animals that show the most sophisticated responses to life. Elephants that stand over the dead are elephants that remember individuals across decades. Crows that map danger through the dead are crows that recognize specific human faces years later. Chimpanzees that groom the dead are chimpanzees that negotiate, deceive, reconcile, and remember. The capacity to respond to death scales with the capacity for social complexity. Which means the question was never really whether they know something is dead. It was always, how much does it matter to them? In Amboseli, a female elephant stood over a calf that wasn't hers for 11 hours. She knew it was dead. The way she touched it made that clear. She stayed anyway. And in 17 years of studying elephant behavior, the researcher who filmed it said she had never seen anything she understood less. The animal that most resembles grief, the behavior that comes closest to something we'd recognize in ourselves, turns out to be not confusion, not instinct, not a misfiring of social signals. It might be something closer to the thing we've always assumed was ours alone. We still don't know what to call it in them. We just know they feel the absence.